There we go.
Has anybody signed up yet?
Yeah, I see folks signing up here.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting a few more minutes for a few more folks to jump online here, but we'll get started in just a moment or so. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Knorr, and I'm the market manager for Countryside Conservancy. And Floyd Davis is joining us this morning to talk about selling produce to a local school system in his area and his process for having established those relationships and how it's grown over time. I'm going to give you a quick lowdown on how the webinar will work. If you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to ask them. There's a question box that you can type them in, and Floyd is going to pause several times throughout the presentation to address questions. So we'll be answering them throughout the webinar this morning, but you can type them in at any time. And then after the webinar has finished, a survey will pop up. And this webinar, as all of our webinars, are funded by a grant through the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program. And I would really appreciate it if you took a few moments just to answer a handful of questions, and that will help us fulfill our grant requirements for all of these webinars. So thanks so much, and I am now going to turn it over to Floyd, and he can go ahead and get started.
Okay, thanks, Beth. And again, I just want to say good morning to everybody, and kind of welcome to the program. What I got to do here is we'll just kind of quickly get shifted over to the slideshow, and I'm assuming at this point everybody can see the PowerPoint. Everything look okay on your end, Beth?
Looks good.
So, okay, perfect. Basically, this is a little bit different for me because typically when I do a presentation, it's in front of a live crowd. So I'm trusting that everybody is there, and I'm trusting that everybody can see. And most certainly, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to type those in, and we'll try to get those answered, when we can. Just a brief introduction. Again, my name is Floyd Davis. I'm located here in beautiful, sunny, somewhat snowy today, northeast Ohio, in a little town called Kinsman, Ohio, and my farm is Red Basket Farm. Just to kind of give you a little brief history of myself and the farm itself, too. The place where I currently live now, I bought this in 2001 and really started farming here in 2002. Just literally with just a few rows of sweet corn and selling a little bit of corn out in front of the house, and eventually started to add a few things to that. And by 2005, kind of saw what was going on with the farmers markets and some of the awareness of the local food movement really in this area, and started growing a lot more stuff, and really started selling at the farmers market while continuing with a little roadside stand here at the farm. Discontinued selling here at the farm and just really kind of branched into selling only at the farmers markets. And by 2009, had the first high tunnel up and started growing year-round. By 2010, up to about 70 different varieties of vegetable crops that we grew here. We were doing 4 farmers markets a week. Started a 20-week CSA that year. I've been working with several restaurants in the Cleveland area. And then in 2010, that's also when we began the Farm to School program. So there's been a lot of growth, really kind of between 2005 and now. It's been a fun ride. It's been quite interesting. And I don't see things changing anytime soon. I mean, the demand is there, both local produce, both at the farmers markets and with the restaurants. But in particular, I see a lot of interest and a lot of growth in dealing with the local schools. Really, how I got started and how the program got started was the summer of 2010. I was approached by the Cuyahoga County Board of Health and also the South Euclid Lyndhurst School District, which is actually located east of Cleveland. They were interested in piloting a farm-to-school program. At that time, in the state of Ohio, there were only 2 other districts that were doing a farm-to-school program. There was one in the Toledo area and one down in Columbus. The Cuyahoga County Board of Health, one of the things that they've looked at is trying to improve the health of students, and they thought that a great way to do this is really by bringing better, healthier foods into the school districts. And the South Euclid Lyndhurst District was very interested in working with the Board of Health to try and put some kind of a program together. Really what this comes down to, it's a cooperative effort between the school district, my farm, and AVI Food Systems. South Euclid, I guess, is a little different in that it's a fairly large school district. There's about, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I believe it's around 4,500 students in the district total, and they're doing approximately 3,500 meals a day. So it's a very large district. Because of that, what they do is they have AVI Food Systems actually manage their cafeterias. So that's why part of this effort is really working with AVI, because they do manage the cafeterias in the school system. Since that effort began in 2010, this past fall, I started working also with the Joseph Badger Local School District, which is my local district. The other end of the spectrum, where South Euclid, they're doing approximately 3,500 meals. The Badger School District is just a few hundred. So it's completely different. So we're working really with both ends of the spectrum here. At the beginning, really kind of what prompted this whole thing was the Cuyahoga County Board of Health really put together a survey that I had received. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was. I think it was like late winter, early spring of 2010. And they'd sent surveys out to farms to see if there would be an interest in working with school districts, or really kind of putting together a farm-to-school program. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling I may have been one of only just a handful that actually responded to the survey. Once they got the information back, they kind of went through this stuff, and they contacted the farms. And actually, most of the farms that had responded were fruit farms. And I think there was only maybe one or two that do what I do. They're, especially crop growers that actually responded to it too. And at that point, they then contacted me, and we'd set up a meeting. They literally came out to the farm here, a representative from the Board of Health and from the school, and we sat on the deck and just kind of talked about the program. I mean, it was very informal. We decided to kind of figure this out as we go. The second school district that we just picked up this fall, the Badger District, the way that was initiated was I had actually received a call from the school and had then set up a meeting with the cafeteria director to sit down and kind of go through what we could do and how it would work for them, and just really kind of work out the details of it. And so far, both programs have worked out quite well. One of the things that we decided to do, right from the beginning, and this is in particular with the South Euclid district, was that we found that there was no template, nothing that we could actually kind of plug into and look at or follow to try to make this work. And so when we had this meeting out here on the deck, we said, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start kind of small, and let's kind of gradually work our way into this and really kind of figure out as we go. And that's what we did. I mean, it started off kind of small, and we've eventually increased production to kind of ramp up towards their demand. Now, even at this point, I'm still not able to supply all of their demand, but we're getting closer and closer. And really, we've worked out a pretty good system that works for all the parties, meaning myself, the school, and also AVI. And because we've got a system in place, it's worked well with the Badger District as well. That's a much simpler system because there's not as many players involved, but it's taken time to evolve this, and I think that's kind of important. If you're going to be talking to a school district, just kind of work it out with them, figure out a system that works for both of you. It can be very small and very simple, or as complicated as you want to make it. And this is the third year in working with the South Euclid Lyndhurst District, and we're still working things out. And quite honestly, I think it's important for all parties involved to be somewhat flexible. The things that we're really working out now not so much have to do with delivery and billing and that kind of thing. It has some more to do with the production side of it, being able to ramp up production here at the farm to meet their demand and to hit schedules that work with their cafeteria schedules and that kind of thing. So it's a work in progress. I mean, it will continue to be. I mean, I think it's ever evolving. One of the things that we talked to initially when we were going into this is that it would be not just about the food. I mean, that's a critical component of it, is really kind of getting good, healthy foods into the cafeterias and really changing the diets that the kids were exposed to with the foods that were coming into the schools. But you know, it's more than that. I mean, actually, here we go. I knew it was out of sequence. It skipped a page here. Backing up just a little bit here. One of the initial steps when we did the farm to school program with South Euclid, in the summer of 2010, at the end of the summer before the beginning of the school year, the school had scheduled it was like an in-service day for all the cafeteria workers. I went in and talked to them. One of the things that we thought was kind of critical was really kind of explaining the program to the cafeteria workers and really bringing them on board as well. You know, really it's kind of explaining to them why the program is important, not only for the students, but also for my farm and all these different things. And really we thought it was critical to have the staff understand the program, what all was involved in it, and all the different components of it. Because when it comes down to it, I mean, there's going to be more work on their part. They're not getting bags of lettuce in that they can just rip open and dump in a bin. They're getting leaf lettuce or head lettuce or spinach or kale or whatever it is that I'm bringing in, that they might have to chop it. They might have to do a little bit of additional washing. They might, you know, there's more to it. So the school actually went through some training sessions with the cafeteria workers, really kind of teaching them knife skills. Again, this is, I think, kind of unique to this district because it's so large and there's so many things that were involved in it. But I think it's important that, you know, if you're going to be working with a larger district like that, to really get all the people involved in it, right down to the cafeteria workers. And like I said, you know, it's more than just the food. You know, we not only talk to the workers that work with the school and in the cafeteria, but there were several times where I went in and spoke to the kids during their lunch hours. You see the picture there. What that is, they have at the South Euclid Lyndhurst district, there's 6 different schools. In each of the cafeterias, they put in salad bars. So what we do is we bring in product that then gets added into the salad bar. As the kids would have their lunch and as they were finishing up, I would do a little presentation to them. So there would be, you know, I think one day there was, I don't know, 8 or 9 different presentations that I did to 200-300 kids at a time. And it's really about connecting them to their food, the person that grows it, where it's coming from, and just really changing the way that they think about their food and where it comes from and why this is good and why this is better for your bodies. And just it was more than just, you know, supplying them with the fresh food. I mean, the school district and the Board of Health has kind of really taken a holistic approach to it and really kind of getting the kids involved in really all aspects of it. And not only extended to the kids, but also to their parents. The district did a farm to school parent night to bring in interested parents into the school so they could kind of see what this is all about, meet the farmer, you know, and just kind of get familiar with the program and why this is good for the kids, not only at the school, but also carrying this over to home too and trying to eat better at home. One of the things that I've done here is that we've hosted groups of middle school and high school students from the South Euclid Lyndhurst district. We brought 2 busloads of kids out in two different times, and it was amazing. You know, these now granted these are, you know, city kids that aren't exposed to, you know, what it takes to grow food and what it looks like out in the field and that kind of thing. But that was a great experience, bringing the kids out here and showing them through the whole process. I mean, we took them all the way through. It was early in the spring, so I could show them stuff that was already planted. I could show them things that we were getting ready to plant. We did a couple planting demonstrations. I worked up a small area in the one field where we gave them plants that they could plant. And it just really kind of connected them back to what it takes to grow this food. And they were just absolutely amazed. I mean, they didn't, I guess we take a lot of things for granted, doing this all the time and, growing things and knowing how it grows and what it looks like and that aspect of it. But the kids were just absolutely mesmerized by it. They absolutely loved it. And really, the last point there is really, again, it's about connecting the kids back to where the food comes from and how it's grown and why all of this is important. If you want, Beth, maybe we could do, if anybody has any questions before we move into kind of the business side of it, if anybody does have a question about getting it started and some of the other things that we had to do, or maybe something that you'd like to hear about that maybe I didn't think of, feel free to type in a question before we move on.
So there is one question that's popped up here, and the question is whether, or who do you think drives the effort to begin the Farm to School program? Does it come from the administration or from the food service department? Does it come more from the parent-teacher organization? And how can a farmer or a group of farmers generate more interest in getting more schools to set up programs like this?
My experience has been that the interest comes from all of those groups. It comes from the administrators. It comes from the parent-teacher groups. The South Euclid district was a little bit different in that it was, again, it was kind of generated by the Board of Health, and then they sought out a school district that was interested in it. My local district here, it was generated because the administration was interested in it, and it just so happened that, literally, I'm not even a mile down the road, the superintendent said, hey, told the cafeteria director, said, why don't you call them and see if they would be interested. But some of that came from some of the parent groups putting a little bit of pressure on the administration to look into this. Some of the other contacts that I've had from other schools, it's really, what I'm finding is changing. It's really coming from the schools themselves. And again, I think part of that is driven by the fact that there's new mandates out there that the schools have to supply more fresh fruit and vegetables into the cafeterias. So I've noticed quite a change between 3 years ago and now. The schools are really, really pursuing it. And I think as an individual farm or a group of farmers, quite honestly, I think the time is perfect right now for approaching the schools and saying, look, what can we do to kind of put a program together? And again, I think a lot of it goes back to the mandates that have been put out to the schools to supply more fresh fruit and produce.
Okay, there's another couple of questions. So one is, do you have any food allergy issues that you have to deal with in supplying the school foods?
No, I've not. That's not anything that we've run into or come across. Don't know how that would be addressed. I would assume that the school would be aware of any kind of food allergies or issues for their particular students. Nobody has said anything to me about that, or it's not been a concern. No.
Another question is, how have the new menu mandates changed what products schools are buying from you, and what kinds of products are the schools buying?
Really, we're doing pretty much everything as far as the product mix. During the regular growing season, so like at the end of summer going through fall, it's pretty much everything. From all your standards, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, lettuce, spinach, a lot of greens. We do an awful lot of greens. And again, that gets back to the way that the South Euclid district is set up, in that they have the salad bars. So they're putting a lot of this product into the salad bars. A big thing for me that they're looking for are apples. It's something that they can supply to the kids. It's a readily available local product. I do not grow tree fruit. But what we've done is we have an understanding that if I can find apples that come from a local orchard, then that's what we'll do. I buy them and then I supply the school with the apples. Apples are a big thing. I mean, there's a lot of schools that are looking for it. What I have found that works well, a lot of the local orchards have their number twos. They're smaller apples. They're not necessarily damaged or misshapen or that kind of thing, but they're smaller. Those sizes seem to work perfect for the school because they want a little bit smaller apple that they can then give the whole apple to the student rather than having to cut it up. Again, that gets back to some of the having additional processes in the cafeteria that they're trying to avoid. They don't want to have somebody sit there and cut apples all day. So if we can bring in a smaller apple that they can just put out whole, that works out perfectly. And so yes, we've been doing an awful lot of working with the local orchards and getting in tree fruit into the school as well. This time of the year, it's a little more difficult getting a wide variety of products in because we're really confined to what I can grow inside the greenhouses. So it's a lot of spinach, a lot of lettuce, kale, carrots, and that kind of thing that we can harvest out of the high tunnels.
And I think that's it for the questions for right now.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the next section, which is really kind of getting into more of the business side of it. One of the things that I struggled with kind of at the beginning was really kind of justifying in my mind whether it would be worth selling at wholesale pricing, because I mean realistically that's what you're looking at. Prior to that, prior to working with the school, I worked with a few restaurants where I do what I consider my wholesale plus. So it's wholesale, but it's a little bit above. One of the things that, I mean, for certain, if you're going to be working with the schools, if you sell at farmers markets right now, you cannot expect that the school is going to be able to pay farmers market pricing. I mean, it's unrealistic to expect that. But one of the things that I've, going into this is one of the things that I use to kind of justify it, and it really has worked out. The larger volume, in my mind, really offsets your lower prices. So, just for example, I can move 100 pounds of spinach at $4 a pound in one delivery, versus when I go to the farmers market, you're looking, around 25 pounds. I can get about $8 a pound. The amount of time that it takes me to pick 100 pounds really isn't that much more than it is for 25 pounds. So to me, it's worth it. The larger volume really kind of makes up for it. One thing that I have found is that the schools have been very cooperative about showing what their current wholesale pricing is from their suppliers. There are some things, looking at the price list that I say, yeah, that's no problem. I can match that, or I can come close, or I may be a little bit higher, but the school is willing to kind of work with me on that because it is close. But there are other things that I can't match or even kind of try to compete on, and that's just part of doing business, because there are some items that really are almost like a commodity. One of the things that I found at the beginning, and I've done this with the schools and with the restaurants too, is that when you look at the quality of the produce that they're getting from their suppliers, I mean, quite honestly, some of the stuff that I've seen, I compost that. I throw that stuff away, and this is what they're shipping in to the schools to serve to the kids. Even though I'm higher on lettuce and greens and that kind of thing, when I bring my product in, they're getting a product that is basically 100% usable. It has a much longer shelf life. They're virtually throwing almost nothing away. When I was initially talking to the chef at South Euclid, one of the things we talked about was lettuce. He was buying head lettuce in a case, standard iceberg lettuce. he would show me when the cases come in, they would have to go through and they'd have to clean it. There would be some stuff that they would just throw away because it was so bad. They would put it in the cooler, and 3-4 days they'd have to go through and clean it again. So yes, what they were getting was cheaper, but when you look at how much of that product they were throwing away, it immediately added about 30-40% to their cost. So, I mean, you can make a pretty valid argument on price, saying, well, because you're bringing in something that's a lot better, has much more shelf life to it, it's a better tasting, more nutritious product. So there's a lot of arguments that can be made to justify the fact that your prices are going to be a little bit higher than what they might be buying from a Cisco or Gordon Food Service or whoever their supplier might be. So there are there are ways to kind of counter the cheap prices, and actually specifically right now, I don't know if you've heard much about how they had the freezes in Southern California and Arizona and New Mexico. I mean, the price of lettuce and greens and spinach and stuff like that is just out of sight. And actually, I'm cheaper now than what what the wholesale pricing is on some of these things. So, produce prices are up and down. I mean, they're up and down all the time, but for the most part, we're very, very competitive with the wholesale pricing. When it comes to really taking the orders and making deliveries, I mean, it's incredibly complicated. I call the school, see what they need, pick it, deliver it. I mean, that's as complicated as it gets. I'm not to the point yet where we have stuff in cold storage. So basically, we pick it to order. One of the things that I make sure that we do is we use standard packaging. So this way, from Gordon Food Service, when they ordered 24-count cucumbers, when I deliver to him, if that's what he's looking for, I use a 24-count cucumber box so that we keep, standard to standard. A bushel box is a bushel box. It's not a used cardboard box that I picked up at the grocery store. This is to me, this is important because it really keeps everybody at the same understanding, so that the school knows what they're getting, they know what they ordered, they know how they're getting it, and it comes in standard packaging that they're used to getting. So it kind of makes for an easy transition. I think that's very important. Not to mention the fact, and this is something that we'll touch on a little bit later, but when it comes back to some of the food safety issues too, we don't use used boxes. I use boxes that are specifically for packing and hauling produce. And getting back to the example that we use about apples, because sometimes I have production issues where I can't meet all the demand, there are a few other small farms in the area that I've worked with where I buy product off of them to then resell to the school, with the biggest example being apples. But I've done it also with lettuce and some of the other leafy greens, and maybe tomatoes if I'm a little bit short, or just whatever it might be. Quite honestly, I think that that's a big area of potential. Is really either one farm taking the lead or a group of farmers getting together to be able to have enough demand or enough product to meet the demand, especially if you're going to be working with a larger district or maybe 2 or 3 smaller districts. Like I touched on at the beginning, when we started, it was just the basics, and maybe a few tomatoes, a little bit of lettuce, a few cucumbers. It was just whatever I had that we could get in there, and we kept it very simple, very basic, and it worked. I mean, it worked well, and it helped us get a system established and get things going, get everybody comfortable with with what we were doing. And we've gotten to the point now where with the South Euclid district, I actually sit down with the chef, and we sit down and we work out a plan as to what I want to plant, what he's looking for, and what we can then bring into the school district Like we just kind of went through this here the last week or two, looking at next fall. So we're planning that far ahead. So it and it's worked well. I mean, it's worked out to be a fairly good program, and I like the direction that it's going. All right, how about we stop here again, Beth, and see if anybody had any questions.
Okay, we do have a few questions that came through. One of the questions was, how frequently do you deliver?
During the growing season, so in other words, fall, and then when we get into early spring, I'm on weekly deliveries. This time of year, because I don't have as much product, it's every other week, so we're going about every 2 weeks. If we get into a situation where I don't have enough, we'll go 3 weeks, or if I've got enough, we'll go every week. So again, it gets back to that flexibility issue. They understand, they meaning the school and the chef and everybody I work with, that there's certain realities to this. I mean, we are in Northeast Ohio. It's winter. I mean, there's only so much that I can do, and as we're developing the business, we're finding ways to kind of work around that. But I'm very, very, very fortunate in that they get this, they understand it, and so if I have to skip maybe 3 weeks between deliveries, that's okay. Or if I can do it every week, that's okay as well.
Okay, another question is regarding quantities and whether or not you've had any suggestions from the school or requests from the school to provide them with minimally processed food because of time restrictions on the cafeteria staff. For example, they don't have enough time to chop up a bunch of peppers to put out on the salad bar and that kind of thing. Have you had any experience with that?
A little bit, yes. I mean, that was one of the issues that we kind of talked about at the beginning. But, in both the larger district and the smaller district, the workers know that there's going to be some additional work that needs to be involved in it. One of the things that we looked at doing as far as lettuce and greens was they buy a lot of head lettuce. So I grow head lettuce here, they do bring it in and they do chop it up, but we also do a lot of leaf lettuce, like a larger leaf lettuce, not like a mesclun or a spring mix, but like different varieties that grow larger leaf that I'll let get fairly big. We cut that. Here, what I do is I rinse it. I don't wash, I rinse. And then I have a dryer that we spin it, we dry it, and pack it. They do, at the school, they will do an additional rinse most of the time. I'm not even sure if they do it all the time now. So I do a little bit of work here that makes things a little bit easier on that end, in that we grow varieties that will work well for minimizing the amount of processing that they have to do, plus then we do rinsing and drying here. So, that kind of thing we're doing, but we're not, at this point, looking at doing any kind of additional processing, like maybe pre-cut carrots or, pre-cut peppers or pre-cut onions or anything like that. But I see that there is a very large potential for something like that. So if there was any kind of, it would probably be more than just a commercial incubator kitchen, but if there was some kind of a processing facility available where you could maybe do a group of farmers together where you could grow a lot of carrots and have them cut and packaged and that kind of thing. I mean, I think there's a whole separate business that could be developed from that too.
Another question is, and I think that you're working with both an urban and a rural school district. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So what has been the difference in trying to sell this kind of effort of getting farm fresh food into the schools? How has that differed between the urban and the rural district?
It's actually has been easier with the urban district because there's just by the very nature of where they're located and really the whole urban local food awareness. And again, part of this may be kind of particular to the Cleveland area, because Cleveland is very much aware of local foods. I mean, it's just a fantastic area for that. So the urban district seems to be a little bit easier, a little more aware of what's going on, a little more progressive maybe in putting these programs in place. Where the rural district, my district here, it's more of a laid back, more of a relaxed, well, and they're I'm trying to think quite how to explain this. They're not quite maybe as progressive with what they're doing in the cafeterias. They're, I mean, nothing against them, but they just, like for example, I took a sample of kale into my rural district, and they didn't even know what it was. But once I explained to them what it was and how the health benefits to it and the different things you can do with it, you could cook it, you can use it raw and do different things, that's been a staple. So the urban district seems to be a lot more progressive when it comes to getting different types of product in and really finding ways to incorporating it into the menus versus the rural district where it's really just about the basics. So that's the main difference that I've seen.
And do you think that, you know, really talking with your rural district about the fact that you're having less food waste when you're buying from you has been helpful, or is it just a matter of educating them on what the products are and how to use them?
The waste argument is good for everybody because the rural district or the urban district, they're buying actually from the same suppliers, Gordon Food Service. So, you know, that argument works for both. And I'm sorry, Beth, what was the second half of that?
The second part was just, you know, has it been just more of an education about what to do with the various products that you're able to provide for them?
Yeah, that's been a lot to it. It's just really, you know, showing them that there's more available than just tomatoes, cucumbers, and lettuce and carrots. That, you know, there's a lot of other things that I grow that I can supply to them, and much to their credit is that they've really kind of adapted their menus to work with what's available. Like for instance, the Badger District, which is my rural district, last fall I had several plantings of summer squashes, zucchini, yellow squash, yellow zucchini, that kind of thing. And we were talking about that a little bit, and the cafeteria director, she said, well, can I have you bring some of this in? I want to figure something out with it. So I took a bunch of the squashes in. What she ended up doing was slicing them and grilling them and adding them into a pasta, and it ended up being one of the things that the kids just absolutely love the most. You know, here's something that they've never done before. They took a product that we had available, came up with something, and the kids just can't get enough of it. So really, it has to do with really kind of showing them what's available and letting them kind of, you know, either figure out what to do or maybe giving them some suggestions and that kind of thing.
Another question is, how long does payment take? Do the schools work with a purchase order system, or how complicated is the invoicing system?
It's different between the two districts. What I had to do is I had to develop an invoicing system for my farm for the South Euclid district. Now what I use is just QuickBooks. It's just standard invoicing through QuickBooks. The way the South Euclid district works, when I make a delivery, I drop an invoice off. That invoice then is forwarded to AVI. AVI Food Systems then issues the payment. There is a time delay. For me, it's not an issue. I mean, I know it's coming. It may be 30, 45, 60 days out, but I know it's coming. So I mean, it's not that big of an issue. My local district, the rural district, they're pretty prompt. When I take a shipment in, same thing. I drop an invoice off, and usually within a week or so, I'll have a payment. And if it extends, if it's a couple of weeks and I've made a couple of deliveries, they'll usually combine those deliveries and issue one payment. So both schools have been very good, but there is some time delay there.
And one more question before I go ahead and have you get back to the presentation. A question is, do you think in terms of working with the various schools, do you think that working with AVI makes it easier to make inroads, or does that make any kind of difference at all? Is it, just working with the lunch ladies or working with the food service company? Do you think, which one do you think is easier?
Yeah, I think there's benefits and drawbacks to both. AVI brings a pretty big presence, and they're looking at, I think they have developed or in the process of developing a whole local food department, I guess you can say. I mean, they're really looking at expanding that and bringing that into other schools and universities and other educational institutions that they supply. So looking at the big picture, I think working with AVI is going to have huge benefits. On the smaller scale, just not having them involved and just working directly, like with my local district, not having a food service director, like a food service company or somebody directing what's going on, I think has its benefits because it's easy to work with a small district. It's a lot more informal, I guess you can say. So I think both sides have their benefits and their downside.
I just want to quickly interject that AVI is also the food service company that works down at Kenyon College that has one of the premier local food programs in the state of Ohio. I don't remember what percentage of local food they're sourcing, but they have an excellent program down there at Kenyon College.
Okay, let's move on to the next section here. And really this, to me, I think is kind of key to being successful with a farm-to-school program. It's by no means mandatory. I mean, you can certainly supply product through the end of summer and through fall and then again in spring, before school lets out. But in my opinion, in the way that I'm directing my business, the season extension and high tunnel growing is really key to what I think will be the future success in what I'm doing here. Because obviously the school year runs counter to our growing season here in Ohio. I've used the high tunnels for season extension and year-round production now for several years, and really think that it's a critical component to the farm-to-school program. Obviously at this time of the year. And really it's the biggest part of the future expansion that I'm looking at here at the farm. I mean, we've added several structures that I have in piles in my backyard, and as soon as the weather gets nice, I have enough structures that I've bought and torn down to actually build 3 more high tunnels. So we're looking really to put a push on that part of the business. And it is possible to grow around here. I mean, obviously, I'm not sure who all's in the seminar here, but there may be some of you already doing this, and it is possible. It's not easy by any means, but it most certainly can be done. Just to kind of give an example, on the left side of the screen in 2008, you'll see the house, the barn, and then to the right of the barn is a small greenhouse. To give an example of scale, that is 14 by 50, that particular greenhouse. That was the first high tunnel that I built. I built it myself from scrap pieces of other greenhouses. Was using it just for season extension. And actually the following year in 2009 did a little bit of winter growing in that. And then also that year added another small high tunnel. And now this picture was taken in December of 2012, just a little over a month ago. And there's actually 5 structures there altogether. The original small one that was 14 by 50 is gone. That's not there anymore. And I've added on since then. And like I said, there's 5 structures that are up now, and we're looking to add 3 more. And even then, I'm not sure that that's going to be enough to even come close to meeting demand for the winter production. Do you want to talk a little bit about the high tunnel growing before we move on, or do you want to move on a little more of the business side, Beth?
Well, we only have about a little over 10 minutes left, so why don't we go ahead and go through the business side, and there were a few questions about food safety in particular. So. Okay, yeah, and I'll address some of the food safety stuff here, shortly too. We'll just kind of blow through this a little bit quicker, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at as far as hard numbers. The first year with the South Euclid Lyndhurst District, that year, that first school year for me, added about $5,000 in additional income to the farm. The second year, 2011-2012, we were a little over $7,500. This year, the 2012-2013 year, adding the additional school, and plus we're taking a pretty aggressive approach to the South Euclid program this year, looking to supply them with a lot more product. Our projected goal this year is in the $20,000 to $25,000 additional income range just with farm to school. So we're really, getting a little more proactive and a little more aggressive with the program. If things work out and we've got enough product to be able to do more, I would like to add more schools to that as well. Just to kind of get an idea. Now, these are some of the things that are going on and some of the things that I want to do. A lot of it is related to the additional business that we're doing because of farm to school, but I also kind of give the perspective that, the restaurant side of our business is taking off. The farmers markets have been absolutely wonderful. So there's more to it than just the farm to school, but that has been a critical component that has allowed for the current growth, and then also things that we're projecting out too. I do have one full-time year-round employee besides myself, and again, this time of year it has a lot to do with the restaurants and the farm to school. Just purchased 2 more greenhouses. One is going to be a permanent structure. The other one that we're going to use, put up and actually use it as a movable high tunnel. If you've not looked into that, I would highly recommend it. We've got the plans in the works right now for building a structure that will serve us as a washing, packing, and cooling facility. We're constantly receiving regular inquiries from other schools. So the demand is definitely there. And really kind of touching on something that I spoke about earlier, one of the things I'm considering is actually establishing a whole separate business that would be just for servicing the schools. Food safety. One of the things that we've always done here is that's always been kind of a critical component in what I do here. At this point, neither one of the schools actually requires any kind of good agricultural practices training or any kind of food safety certification, but they highly recommend it. So it's not required, but it is recommended. In my opinion, even though that stuff is not required at this point, I think it's coming. So as a result of that, we've been very proactive with going through the GAP training every single year, and I'm taking steps, getting back to looking at building a structure for washing, packing, and cooling. I'm looking at steps to actually get the farm food safety certified, and it would be through the Ohio Produce Marketing Agreement that's being put in place here in Ohio. So once we get some infrastructure in place and get different things set up, we will all be pursuing food safety certification here at the farm. Several reasons. One is just a good idea. It's something that just needs to be done. Secondly, I think it's a competitive edge as well. To be able to approach a school or whatever and say, look, the farm is food safety certified. We've been audited. It just makes good sense.
Is it going to be easy? No. I mean, it's a very complicated, time-consuming, paperwork-driven process, but it's a reality. It's it's something that that we're going to definitely have to do. Some of the practices that we're using prior to sending shipments out, we rinse all the equipment. Use a bleach solution. All the the greens and the spinach, we wash everything in stainless steel double bowl sinks. It's spun dried. I have a machine that basically spins it dry. Everything is packed into produce boxes that's specifically for this type of thing is specifically for food. At this point, we do not cool anything. It's everything is picked to order. Again, that will probably change here in the near future, but for right now, everything is picked and packed fresh. And then we do try to follow as much as possible the GAP training that we had, all the good agricultural practices, and most importantly, the common sense side of it, because quite honestly, that's what most of it is, just common sense. So really just kind of a quick review. Start by asking. I mean, if you've got a school that's close to you, or you've heard something, I mean, call them up, go visit them. I mean, that's that's the best thing to do, is just start by asking. And again, the schools with these new mandates are required to provide more fresh fruit and vegetables. So you basically have a captive market there. They need it, you got it. I mean, it's a perfect combination. What has worked well for me, and I recommend, is starting small and really kind of developing relationships with the folks at the schools. I can't stress enough how important it is to really develop that relationship side. And really take a comprehensive approach to it. It's it's about the food, but it's really about connecting the kids where the food comes from and why this is important. And quite honestly, I think one of the more critical components is this additional income for the farm. Everything counts. So basically, that's it. So if there's any more questions, we'll be more than happy to kind of go through those as well.
Okay, we do have a few more questions, but we only have about 5 minutes, so okay. I'll try to go through them quickly. One question about production is, do you add a heat source to your high tunnel?
At this point, no. I do have one structure that I use. It's half high tunnel, half greenhouse. I use for starting season stuff, but I do have heat in that. So part of that high tunnel / greenhouse is heated. I am looking at some different forms of heating the greenhouses and really getting some heat into them. I don't think I would do that with all of them, but I think it would be. I think it's important to maybe have 1 or 2 structures where I can do that. So that is something that we're going to be looking at in the very near future.
Have any of the schools indicated a need that they have to put the prices out for bid on the produce?
I've not run into that at all. Nope.
Okay. And do you know anything about the Department of Defense program for getting fresh produce into schools?
No, I do not, but I keep seeing that, and I keep getting information on it, and I've not looked into that to see what the specifics are with that. So I don't know enough to be able to comment about it. The only thing that and again, this is in my opinion, the only thing that would concern me with that is it's a government program, and typically it's going to have any of the government programs that I've looked at or worked with or done anything with, the amount of paperwork and red tape, and it's just not worth it. Now, this may be something completely different. I don't know enough about it to really comment on it, but me personally, I would be a little hesitant to do it just because of the very nature of what it is.
And then a question about the business side. The figures that you showed, was that actual income or was that gross?
That's going to be gross.
All right. Are there any more questions? I don't see any more questions coming in, Floyd, so I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to share your experiences with us this morning, and to let everybody know that we have recorded this presentation and we'll put it on our website so that you can refer to it in the future. You can watch it again or share it with some other people that you think might be interested. So thanks, everybody, for attending, and thanks again, Floyd.
Okay, well, thank you, Beth.